for 10. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 96. We are heading fast to episode 100 at this rate. Quite unusually, we don't have Luke or Nick on the show. And in some ways, I kind of don't mind it because everyone knows I like talking as it is. And Nick's always trying to shut me up. But secondly, Lukey's on a tourism shoot on the Murray River. He's literally sent me a video last night of one of the river boats he's just about to get on and spend, I think, a whole week on. So he's doing a lot of drone work and that kind of thing. And he couldn't guarantee that he was going to be anywhere in range tonight. So he thought about trying. And Nick's at work, working hard for the community late at night, doing what he does. But I actually am kind of what's particularly special about this is we have Rachel on tonight, Rachel Gillespie, who managed to make my trip to New Zealand beyond amazing just by being who she is and the connections she had and the generosity she showed me. So it actually feels really good to be able to return the favor a little bit and to flesh that out and spend a bit of time with her. She's a pretty unique person in terms of, if you saw the show description, you can see she's had a very multi-layered life and has a huge range of skill sets from life coaching to marketing to editing magazines to coaching people, and she's transformed herself into a working full-time landscape photographer, which is no mean feat in the modern day and age. And as I'll say it out loud, whether we're at meeting or not, as a woman, as a single mother, that has its own particular challenges and joys, I guess, as well. And we're going to be quite unashamedly sort of open and about a lot of things. Rachel's a very hard on the sleeve sort of person, and as you know, so am I. So that's kind of why I kind of like having the freedom of just having us on the show. There's no grumpy fellas in the background trying to none of the soft squishy stuff, whatever. So we're going to let ourselves be a little bit free and wherever we go. And myself, I've just come back from Brunei. I did 4 days there, and I actually think I got some of the best astro shots I've ever got in my life. And pretty of a fluke, to be honest. I went a night early from the KP6 warnings and didn't think there was even going to be an aurora at all, but I knew that was good for astro. And I went out and Lukey gave me a bit of a hint that there might be something. And sure enough, oh my goodness. I might show a couple of those later. And I know Rachel's very, very keen on astro. And yeah, I didn't get to talking about it too much on the last show, but I did. And this is where I actually met Rachel at the New Zealand Professional Photography Awards, the Iris Awards in Nelson. So I was asked to go over by the old Prez to do some judging for the 6th time, I think. And that was really important for me personally. I think I've been missing my community for years. I haven't been allowed to go home for almost 3 years because of COVID. I haven't seen my family for that same period of time. And to see both my family and my community together and meet new people like Rachel was just, I can't tell you how full my cup feels after that. Like it really does. And so very, very grateful. And we'll brush over the story how that sort of came to be. And then I also I went from the end of my New Zealand trip to the Australian Photographic Prize conference. And for those of you that don't know about it, it's probably the new premier digital and print-based competition in Australia that has live judging. So there's echoes of APA. It's different in that it's completely open to amateurs as well as professionals, and it has a mixture of print and digital judgings. Very, very accessible, quite affordable. But to be honest, a lot of the same people were involved in organizing it and judging it. And so again, that was another opportunity to just re-engage with community and start filling a big hole that's been left by the RPP going defunct. And that was pretty magic. I was asked to be a keynote speaker. So I spent about a week pulling this thing together on the power of your voice as an image maker, which, if you really think about it, is a lot about purpose, which is what Rachel's going to speak to a lot of tonight. And I think purpose is really what is the kind of thing that gets you out of bed. It keeps you motivated. It sort of taps into your brilliance. It pushes you to go beyond. And it can, in my case, define my career and my daily, right down to my daily life. So really special to do that and to judge there. I got lucky. I was a finalist at the Australian, well, they call it the Australian Photography Awards. Basically, the New Zealand's knew that we didn't have the APAs, and because they have almost an identical judging system, we've been working together for about a decade. They offered to run the equivalent of the Australian Awards across all the categories, which they did. They did a wonderful job. And I managed to get finalist just behind Mika Boynton that took that out. And finalist was Frances Suter, who's a wonderful abstract architectural work is some of her favorite work, but she's much more diverse than that. And at the Australian Photographic Prize, I got finalist in landscape with Tony Hewitt and I can't remember the other lady's name. Apologies for that. And of course, no harm in losing to Tony Hewitt, although I think there's only a point in it. But yeah, he's someone I look up to, and his work is superb, and we have very, very similar passions with our abstract area work in particular. So enough about me. So we've got a couple of hours to spend with Rachel, or whoever less or more we want to use that for. It's probably going to be, it's not going to be a wham bam visual show. It's going to be a bit more of an in-depth conversational show. And I think we're in a unique position to learn a lot from Rachel. She's a very, very motivated, very talented person, and she's not afraid to really give things a red hot go. And you'll understand more why, being a mum and a family and that the commitments of being a provider are partly in that conversation, I guess. And there's a lot of courage, I think, to be full-time in a landscape world. And with Rachel's background in multiple fields, she has a pretty extensive skill set to bring in that probably, to be honest, quite a lot of landscape photographers don't necessarily have in terms of business and coaching and graphic design and websites and marketing. And so I'm going to be listening quite intently tonight, because I will not pretend that those are my strengths. And Rachel's not shy about the fact that they are, and not a shy person in general. And I actually find that really refreshing about Rachel and really inspiring, because she's not afraid to go for what she believes in and back herself and to make things happen. And I know from personal experience that that's not always the case for a lot of people, including myself. So I don't know if that's intro enough for you, Rach. She's based in the South Island. Are you coming from Timaru tonight, Rachel?
Timaru tonight, yeah.
There you go.
Geez, that's a pretty big shoes to fill there, mate.
You've got no problem filling them, from what I know, Rachel. So
thank you for having me. It's amazing, and we're having a bloody polar blast tonight, so I'm hoping that it's not going to affect the internet, because it's been snow, hail, all sorts this afternoon. Yeah.
So I spoke to my mum this afternoon, and she should say there's snow forecast for the South Island.
Oh, it's insane. It's been a crazy day. I think there might be a bit more tomorrow. Yeah. But that's New Zealand in the spring. It can be
you had a lot of
in one day, eh?
There was a lot of snow just before I arrived. And in fact, some of the best snow and skiing that I've had in many, many, many years. And I think just as we were at the awards, and Rachel will remember, and this is actually part of the reason why I ended up spending time with Rachel. I was meant to go down the West Coast and hang out with a good friend, Jason Blair, and try and hook up with a crazy bush pilot to go flying over Fiordland and land on some beaches. And this huge storm came up, and it turned out to be a 5-day torrential downpour, warm, moist northwest weather system that just completely flooded out the entire of Nelson and the northwest coast literally the day after we left.
I know.
And so I changed direction. It was literally that night I saw the forecast and I thought, oh, shall I stay here in Nelson and wait the weather out and then go down the west coast, or should I just run the other direction? Because I had a free window of about 10 days after the awards, and at about, I don't know what time in the morning, I spoke to Rachel. It might have been 1 a.m. or something. Oh, do you feel like give me a lift? I figured out. I asked around who was going south and who'd driven up, and she was one of them. And she was like, sure. So I think I got home at 3:30 a.m. after the awards shenanigans, and I had to pack my bags and be ready by 7. And
I wasn't sure you were going to be ready, to be fair.
Yeah. So I ended up going down the West Coast, which led to a whole bunch of adventures, but we'll talk about those later.
Yeah, it was awesome, wasn't it? And you know, NZIPP was really interesting for me. It was the first time I've ever been to anything like that in my entire photography career. I've never actually been to any professional photography conferences before. So it was it. We were talking about it earlier. A friend of mine, Chloe Lodge, she had a ticket. She couldn't go. She advertised it online. Geez, does anyone want to take my ticket? And I was just like, yep, I'm supposed to be there. Don't know why, but I'm going to do it. So I bought her ticket and yeah, went along and absolutely loved it. And it really exceeded my expectations, to be fair, actually. So that was awesome. And that's how we connected, and among with a few other people as well. And yeah, it was actually amazing.
If we go back and flesh it out a little bit, like what, I mean, I guess you just alluded to something that's a big part of your character and mine, is that I often make a lot of my decisions based on intuition and feeling, not just logic. But if you're going to apply both, what sort of drew you to it coming, and what maybe surprised you about it, or how was it compared to how you thought it was going to be, and what did you get out of it?
Well, you know what I'm like, I'm brutal, so I'll tell you the truth. But a lot of people talk about these conferences being a certain way, and I was probably a little bit biased to that other people's opinion. And then I just went, hey, actually, that's not how I think about things. I feel like this could be cool. So I'm a bit woo-woo, as you know. So I was like, yeah, I just know intuitively I need to be there. I just didn't know quite why. And there was actually about 6 or 7 reasons afterwards that were amazing things that have taken place since then, and just mostly networking and connections, but also industry people that I've met up with as well. And even just as a mum, taking that time for myself to just take 3 or 4 days out of my normal life to be immersed in the photography community is not something that I get to do hardly ever. So I usually always have clients with me, so it was nice to be all about me for a change. You know, just I feel like I'm a bit of a rogue photographer a lot of the time because I don't follow all the rules. So it was quite cool. It was quite cool to go to the judging and learn I learned heaps from sitting at the judging for a whole day. My friend Vicky Bowman, who we had some pictures in, and I went together, and she was really nervous, so I was on like sushi run and coffee run, and that's actually when I first met you, but you probably don't remember that because you were judging. And I was like, oh, who's this guy? He looks like a cool character. So that was quite funny. And yes, I spent the whole day, Vicky and I, sitting there watching the landscape category being judged, and I learned heaps from just watching that. Jace Blair was also one of the judges there too.
He was in fine form.
To be honest, I've never known much about him before either, and so I don't know, it was just like, for me, and I think this is my whole life, I'm all about people. So I just absolutely love Simone Jackson, who's a great friend of mine who introduced me to you. She was also judging. Yeah, so I mean, it was just really nice to realize how much talent is there in a different way, because a lot of the work I do is tourism, and a lot of the people I work with were kind of quite set into one genre of photography. So yeah, it was kind of cool to just open my mind and heart up to new ideas, think about entering some pictures in next time, how I'd go about it, because I'm always in a hurry and busy. It was nice to just sit back and think about what I could do a year from now, which is not something as an artist that I really do very often, because I'm always running my business. And that's something I want to talk about a bit later. But you know, being a photographer for the love of it, for a hobby, versus running a business with photography as your product, is a very different seat to sit in. And you know, also for me, I'm very particular about integrity and having things set up so that people feel like you've over delivered is really crucial as well. So it's not just about the pictures, it's about all the other bits that go with that. So what I loved about NZIPP is I got inspired by some amazing speakers, like you know, there's heaps of different cool speakers, but one particular person I really loved was he works in my area as well, and I actually ended up having coffee with him at the break, not even realizing who he was at the start. and we kept yarning away. And then I realised who he was, and we talked about Tekapo and the Mackenzie and a whole bunch of stuff. And now he's following me online, and I'm following him, and it's cool. And you just make like different connections with people where you go, I don't know where that's going to go at the moment, but we're on each other's radar. And I think that's what's really cool about going to a conference, is that's not always about the photos.
It's a number of things. If I jump in and put a 5 cents in, it's photography is a very solo pursuit generally, and it's not actually that common to be around other photographers for a period of time, just purely through just how the industry works and the way the profession works. So so it's rare that you get the kind of opportunities to have those conversations and connect people and put faces to names and understand who people are. And what I think, because we didn't really explain about it was both an awards and a conference. So it was 2 days of judging and another few days of actual full-time conference and speakers. So, and there's a whole bunch of industry and trade people from all the major companies that are there running their own events and doing prizes, and you've got a rare opportunity to spend time with them too. Like I actually spent an entire hour with the head guru of Canon, and I just went through every single question that has been burning to ask somebody that knew, that had that specific level of knowledge about my equipment that I never get to do living in Tassie. There's no, you can't even get a camera repaired here, let alone anything else. and so yeah, so it's a one-off very holistic opportunity, and I personally are quite committed, as you well know, to one, the judging process, and two, the community building, and the kind of connections can lead to things you just don't expect and don't even know, and you just kind of trust it, that it'll build into something in the future, as I'm sure Rachel will talk more about.
I think also what happened for me is I was ready for it. So like I've had a camera for 5 years, so it's not really that long. And I also made me realize that actually I do have some good pictures. So, I'm real hard on myself. We're always our greatest critic, aren't we? And people ask me, like this photo, that photo, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, it's all right. Like, I probably have a handful of like 10 pictures that I'd say are amazing, and the rest are okay, so, and I've got hundreds of pictures. So, I don't think that's a bad thing to critique yourself. But when I looked at some of the categories and the entries, I was like, I could do all right here. I've got some good pictures that I could put into these competitions. Not that I need anybody else's endorsement, but it's just nice to have that, I guess, that accolade for all your efforts, because as every photographer knows, it's not just the photo, it's all the backstory and all the stuff that you did to get to that point, to even get that shot, which you might have gone there 6 times before you even took it, and so I think that's what I also loved about that. And same with me with Canon, I spoke to them extensively, and that's actually turned into something quite exciting, which I can't talk about yet. But I was in the right place at the right time to make the right deal, which is one of my daily mantras. I trust in the process of stuff like that. So, there's quite a bit of woo there. And, I don't know, like, you just give it a whirl, throw a stick at it, whatever you want to call it, those Kiwi things we do. And in New Zealand, and I don't know if Aussie's the same, but we're so shocking at this tall poppy syndrome business, where we are not very good at, holding each other up. And I felt like at NZIPP, it was opposite to that, which was so refreshing and unexpected, to be bluntly honest.
Yeah, great.
Everybody I spoke to, I learned something from, or got some sort of inspiration or whatever. And I came away from this like so excited. And just, I don't know, like I'm speaking at the Photography Society New Zealand conference in Labour Weekend 2023 about my story of astrophotography. And so it just also gave me like a whole different perspective on how I'd go about that, which will impact on my life and my business as well. So there's just so many layers, and, meeting amazing people, having a lot of fun, especially after the last couple of years. It was really nice to have some positivity. And I just felt, and I don't know if you felt, but I think after COVID, it's leveled everybody out to an even playing field. And I think people were way more humble and grateful about the future prospects of what industry we actually sit in. And I often say this to my partner, like, we're so lucky to be living in New Zealand doing this as a job. Like, it's not even a job really. How awesome, you know? And so I think it's just all the things, appreciating what we do have, not what we've lost. Not, you know, we've all lost, everybody's lost heaps for whatever different reasons over the last couple of years. Now we've got this new fresh face, or this new way of living, or whatever you want to call it, and we can be bitter and twisted about it, or we can go, okay, cool, we've got all these amazing opportunities. What does the market want? What are clients looking for? How can I actually deliver that?
And
so that was all the stuff that I got out of that.
That's something right there, Rachel, that stands out around you personally, I think, is that broader industry awareness, and through your past kind of professional roles, as well as just who you are, of actually taking the time to be really present to what the market wants and what clients want, and working to deliver it. And it's not always the, you know, artsy fartsy, innovative, original thing that might win an award. It's actually, that's a pretty obscure kind of small aspect of a marketplace and a working photographer to put food on the table. And it's sort of, we get a bit caught up in it. I know I do, because I'm a bit more of an artist and a businessman at heart anyway. And what I find really refreshing, and I'm keen to rub more off on you, is that beautifully practical application that you have around the craft, along with your obvious sort of enthusiasm and gratitude for it. You're not shy of actually going straight to it. All right, well, this is how I'm going to make it work. I
don't really know why, but I feel like I was put on this planet to share my story and to help people. So that's why I do photography as my vehicle. So I'll tell you a bit about myself, because then that might actually also lead into why. And, you know, everyone's got a story, and we could go on and on about all the details of that, each of us. But, you know, the guts of it is that we have an experience. We're you know, a spiritual being in a human body, have human experience, in my opinion. So why not have the best version of that you can? Sometimes we hit a few you know, roadblocks along that way, and that's when we have the opportunity to make a choice. We get to a fork in the road, you know, and we all know this, and we're probably, a lot of people sitting here right now having that moment, and we have to make a pro and con list of which direction we're going to go in, and then we have to back ourselves and go, right, we're not quite sure about it, but this is the one that feels right in my heart, not just the logic. Because I think there's a lot of people in photography operate on logic and technical stuff, which is great, and we need that. But the best people I've studied in photography have, you know, maybe we're a bit nuts. We just go for it. We just go, righto, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to ask it. I'm like, I think so. My thing is, I'm not asking anyone's opinion about it. This is what because I believe in myself. This is what I'm going to do. And then I go, okay, so where's my blind spot, and then how can I make this happen? And then sometimes I'll go through all that process, and then I go, it doesn't feel right anymore, so no, don't go there. Or, yep, I'm so pumped about this is what I'm going to do. So I have a bit of a process about how I go about all that, which is, I guess, stuff that I've learned through my life coaching and that. But anyone can make a pro and con list, and, you know, I think we've lost a lot of our logic, common sense, for some reason over the last 10 years. I'm a Generation X, so I started work when I was 17 there was no cell phones, no computers, you know, no techie stuff. So we had to actually talk to real people. And I think that was, you know, I was doing telemarketing on a dial-up phone, like crazy stuff these days. But it was such a great grounding, because we learnt how to communicate without technology. And yes, when we got into technology, it was amazing because it was an extra tool, but it's just a tool. And that, I still believe that, and I still act like that, and I still run my business like that. And I don't think that's ever going to actually change. Yes, we can use social media and things, which are amazing, to further and grow out and develop things, but you still have to be a real person doing cool shit, or providing a product that someone wants to buy. you know, at the end of the day, you have to be authentic or it never lasts. So this is about me being also a legacy builder, which is something that a lot of people haven't thought about, the possibility of how you could do that as a photographer. It's actually so exciting. And I'll talk a bit more about that later as well. But so my background as a kid was growing up on a horse farm. We had horses. My dad was a saddler and a horse trainer. And we basically spent our whole life outside. So we were horse riding, doing jobs on the farm, driving machinery and tractors, trucks when we were 10, 11 years old. And we had jobs to do. We had responsibilities. We had an amazing family life with not much money, but we had a lot of love. And I think that's also something that I would say has been a huge impact on who I've become as a person, because I knew that I was loved growing up. So I'm super grateful for that. And I know that's not everybody's experience. No. We did a lot of hunting. We spent a lot of our childhood in the Mackenzie country, Ahuriri Valley, Tekapo, all those areas as kids. And, you know, back then things were pretty basic, and we learned how to hunt, fish, all that stuff, is, you know, how to survive, how to look after ourselves. My dad, who was an incredible provider, who I'm very much like, he taught us how to survive in the world, really. And I'm really grateful for that, because especially as a female and becoming a single mum. So I've been on my own as a single mum for 10 years. And when I left my husband, I went through women's refuge and domestic violence. So it was, you know, that's another whole story. And I've had quite a bit of trauma on my journey, but I never, ever felt like a victim. I never even once felt like that defined who I was as a person. And I think that's because I had that family background, that upbringing, that, you know, that strength. And you said before, a bit of courage. I have had to pull out that pocket a few times. And that's made me who I am as a photographer as well, because when you're in the middle of the Tasman Valley in the dark and you're by yourself trying to get some sort of shot, and then you start to freak out a bit that you're there by yourself, or what if there's an earthquake, or what am I going to do if this happens, and you get all the silly thoughts, and then you just go, oh, for God's sakes, chill out. Like you're so lucky to be standing here by yourself in the middle of nowhere in the bloody, national park. And so I guess it's building the muscle. It's the mental muscle or the heart muscle or whatever you want to call it. It's just as powerful as all the other things. So, and so like over my life, I've done a lot of cool stuff. I love being a mum. My kids are now 10, 13 and turning 15 this week. So, I've done the hard bits. I did all the hard bits when they're babies, and now they're the most amazing humans, and we're a wee team. And I think that's also part of what I've created through this journey of photography. Is I had to do something to feed my kids, and so I had an absolute desire, a passion. There was no option for it not to work. And that was, I think, something that was one of the greatest blessings out of tragedy. And so we forget about that sometimes until we're through, a bit through that. When I look back now and I go, oh, I'm so grateful that all this happened, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. Takes a journey, and it takes a few wins to be able to reflect back on stuff like that, doesn't it? So over time, a lot of things happened, and I decided and chose to be on my own by choice, to be a mum and a photographer. And I knew that I had to work very hard to make that happen. I had one camera body, one lens when I started, a 24-105 f3.5 Canon 6D Mark I. And I was like, right, I've spent all the money I have on this gear, so I better figure out how to use it. I think that was also a bit of I don't know why I'm doing this, but it feels right scenario. A guy called Chris Pegman, who's quite a good astrophotographer here in New Zealand, gave me an astro lens, which was so crazy and generous. And I was passionate about astrophotography. I'd done a bit of marketing work for Mark G from The Art of Night before I got my camera. You guys might know him for astrophotography. And I was like, well, if Mark can do it, I can do it. So what do I have to do? So that, I guess I just went through this whole dream building thing. And I thought I might just bring up a few pictures while we're just to give you a bit of, I'll just share my screen to give you a bit of inspiration, because otherwise I'll keep talking.
I'll say, as our designer Dex, he normally loves the freedom to roam through people's work and choose what he feels like is going to really represent the show. And Rachel picked a single image up front that she felt like it would do it. And I don't think I've ever heard Dex say this. He was like, I didn't need to look at anything else. That's just perfect. And it was just, and so that's quite a compliment for someone like Dex who's life trolling through images. So it's,
so sorry, carry on.
This has a real majestic kind of spiritual quality to it, I think.
Well, there's a story with this picture, a bit of woe again. So I love this picture because it has a lot of meaning for me, and it was a beautiful sunset, but my dad passed away in 2018, and after he passed away, I went on this photography shoot, and this was one of the pictures that I took. So it was a very, I don't know how to explain it, but it was an emotional, experience. It was freezing cold. It was like friggin' wind chill factor. And I was actually at the top of Lake Pukaki, and I had a 100 to 500 lens on loan and took this picture from 55 k's away from the peak. So it was just a really cool, special image for a whole bunch of reasons, but particularly because I was tuning into my dad passing over, and this bloody seagull kept flying past me all the time. And then for the whole year after he passed away, this bloody seagull would turn up just by itself when I was on my own doing photography. It was the most random thing. I was just like, what is this? So that was pretty cool.
Is this Aoraki?
Yes, Aoraki, Mount Cook. Yep. And I'll just flick. These are my beautiful children. That was a few years ago now, but my gorgeous kids. This was my first ever trip in here with when I had my new camera with a couple of mates, and it had snowed and it was icy, and we were like, oh, this is going to be cool for Astro. So we had walked in here to do a bit of a recce and check it out, and I'll show you some more about that a bit later. So that was pretty cool. That's the Hooker Glacier there. This is one of my favorite shots. I do quite a lot of aerial photography like you, and have a bit of a passion for a helicopter. So this is at Fiordland. I do quite a bit of work in Fiordland as well, and this is the Sutherland Falls, Lake Quill. So we were fortunate to charter a helicopter here with some clients, and we actually landed on a special place that you don't normally go to on a repeater station. Get this shot. This was about 3 or 4 shots stitched together. I do a lot of stitching. It's one of my favorite things to do. This is Lake Alexandrina, so that's just near Lake Tekapo. You might have heard of a wee bit about this, but it's kind of a secret spot that a lot of people go to and no one tags it. So, you get those places that no one geotags because they're just like so spectacular and special that we don't want them to become a Wanaka tree.
Yeah, so I Rachel put me on. I knew it was there, but I hadn't actually been, and Rachel planted the seed for me to spend a little bit of time there. I spent sort of a half a day there on a rainy, moody afternoon, and very, very still and really stunning. There's nobody there at all except me the whole afternoon, and it's pretty magic, and lots of rock star swans. I just had this.
I know
these swans that are just like, oh, how about this side? Oh, how about this side? I think this spot. Oh, and I was just going, you guys are pretty keen on getting some photos.
I don't know. Most of my photos are handheld. I'm a bit of a, as I said, a bit rogue. So most of my photos are handheld. This one's not. This is on a tripod with a case filter system, which was quite cool. So I kind of dabble a bit in that, and especially on workshops because people want to know how to do that stuff. This is at Aoraki again with that wee lenticular cloud at the top there, nice black and white. I don't do a lot of black and whites, but when I do take one and I like it, it challenges me. I feel like that's something I want to learn a bit more about and do more of in the future. But you just got to have the time to do these things. This is a KP7 Aurora near my house in Timaru, which was pretty crazy. And you can see possibly, I'm not sure if you can see the planet there, but that's Jupiter in the Milky Way on the right-hand side there. So this was a pretty special shot for me because it's just where my my dad is buried and my brother. So we lost my brother as well 2 years ago. So yeah, this is like right where they are. So I've just had this printed out 1.5 meters for my mum, so we can put that up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of those
people don't know, like the South Island of New Zealand has some of the best sort of dark sky regions in the world. And actually, when I was in Tekapo, which is, we'll go back on the story partly due to Rachel. I actually went to the Dark Sky Center, and I went to the show they did on the Māori astrology and sort of why and how dark sky is important and how different regions. And I think Tekapo is one of those regions that actually has been declared an official
International Dark Sky Reserve. Yeah.
Yeah, so that dictates the lightings that houses can use and street lights and all sorts of things that minimize the impact of light pollution. And it makes it just astronomical for being, even in a house or in a street, you can still potentially do some astro work without having to go far because the light pollution is so limited.
This is not in the Dark Sky Reserve, the shot, but it's not too bad there.
Yeah, I knew that.
There's a few properties there, but yeah. That was a six image stitched together, that one. So shot that on the 24mm Samyang. So I was quite stoked with the stitch, how that came out actually, because I wasn't sure how that was going to go.
Do you find that if you want to get active movement, and you have to really kind of lower the shutter speed as much as you can, so that those?
I think that was about 6 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, which is quite low for 24. So yeah, so I've been learning this myself, Rach, that when you have active auroras that have a lot of beams and columns and movement,
shorter shutter, yeah.
Yeah, if you have a longer shutter speed, they just tend to just blur into each other, a big blob. And
a lot of people will tell you to use 20-second shutter, but yeah, you'll find that when they're pinging up. So here in South Island, we get a lot of what we call pinging. You can see some of those there in that picture, where it just pings up and down, up and down. So you want to. Some people would even probably shoot that 4 seconds. You want to capture it quickly.
You might not have a lens that's actually capable of.
True.
That or a camera that you can.
Although actually, if I wanted to, I could have shot that on the 24-105 f3.5 actually, because it was so big.
KP. Yeah. So KP7. So KP is a measurement of basically the potential power of the magnetic storms that come through. There's other measurements as well. I'm slowly learning them, but that's one of the more obvious ones. And to get to the visible eye, it needs to be pretty big. To get on a camera, you might get away with 3 or 4. You're starting to get into 5, it starts getting pretty good. 6 and 7 is like stonking. So if you hear about KP 6 or 7, it's like pack your car and get running.
Charge your batteries, people.
At the same time, I organised and went down to Bruni this weekend purely largely because of a raw warning, which was for Saturday night. And it was for a KP6, which is pretty damn big.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, it never even turned up, and there was nothing.
You just a lot of the time here it turns up during the day, so it's annoying.
Yeah, and then sometimes it peaks during the day. But I went the night before, just as a because it was going to be a really clear night for astro, and I thought at the very least I'll get some of that in on my trip as well.
Yeah.
And Aurora turned up that night sort of unannounced. And I got some of the best.
Crazy. Yeah.
So you can. It's a fickle art and science both. What do you use to get your warning?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm a bit lazy. I rely on the Facebook groups like Aurora Australis, and got a couple of mates who always message me. My friend Paul Stewart, he's the upside down astronomer. He always messages me and says, guess what's happening tonight or whatever, and he follows it. He's got all sorts of stuff he does at his place with his observatory and stuff, so I'm real lucky to have that. And
observatory, oh wow, that's the
right. There's a guy called Les Ladbrook who is from down in Vicarga Way. He does a lot of stuff in the Aurora Australis group as well, and posts every day.
I just thanked him the other day.
Yeah, he's cool.
He puts huge amount of time and energy into posting in the Aurora Australia's Facebook page, which anyone can join, I think.
It's just a public page you can join. And it's the other thing is the Glendale, I think it's called, the Glendale app is supposed to be pretty accurate. So a lot of people use that. But sometimes I'll just go onto the US websites and just have a look at the predicted auroras and things like that. Just, every so often, just have a wee check out. But yeah, I pretty much rely on my mates to tell me when it's coming, to be fair.
Well,
or if I'm taking clients out, then I'll check it and go, oh, what's
that's pretty much the same as me, Rachel. I got Luke, as you know, Luke is one of the best astro and aurora photographers in the country. And I don't think that's an arguable fact. I think it just is. And we have another friend of ours, Benny Aldridge, who
I know Benny,
is just brilliant at this sort of thing, and he has the mind and the genius to understand the science around it as well, which I literally my brain just melts.
Mine's a bit melting.
How many times he shouted out a few warnings to our last boys, and then Luke kind of takes it from there. And I too, I could, because it's so fickle, like going out on a trip to Brunei is, it's a $120 of petrol and a big trip and a ferry, and to go there and get nothing's a bit like, well, hello, sailor. So I do tend to rely on the eyewitness reports. And to be honest, Rachel, I'll often look at the New Zealand groups first, because you're dark 2 hours before us. And if you're getting an aurora, then we're going to get an aurora pretty much. So it gives you an instant kind of feedback live. And sometimes these events, particularly the really active aspects, they might only last 20 minutes, where you get, the big beams and the really active sort of things happening. You often get a glow for a lot longer than that. But in terms of getting the real power of it. And I remember packing my camera up and just going for a walk on Friday night after I'd shot the aurora, and then about an hour later, I just sort of out of the corner back around, it's just a little bit more glow than there was before, and it just fired back up again randomly, and it was even better.
It does, So we're quite lucky here in New Zealand that we don't have to go too far like you guys do. So I can go 10 minutes from my house for this, or I can go to Tekapo, which is about 1 hour and a quarter drive, which is going to give me the beautiful foreground. Whereas that, and then you get a bit fussy once you're taking a few of these photos, or you're taking a few Milky Ways or a few of these shots, then you want the foreground as well. So then you have to go to a different place. The foreground in this particular shot is not that great. It's just a farmland. So then I want to go and get a lake as well, so I can get a reflection. And you kind of tend to up your game. It's like it's kind of an astro landscape then. So it becomes quite exciting. I'll jump on to the next one. This is orphan
just I might be a little bit cheeky and selfish, just because we've already just spoken about it. If I just show a couple of shots I was just talking about, because it's
shall I stop share that then?
Just for for 3 minutes.
Geez, I'm learning all this Zoom stuff today.
Oh no, you're onto it. Now is my screen
I'm literally the most unzoomed person in New Zealand, so this is all new to me.
Unzoom. You see my screen, Rach?
So beautiful foreground.
So when you get really serious about astrophotography, you first of all get pretty excited about what's in the sky, and then slowly you realize that's only part of a picture, and tying it to the earth and giving it a pathway to move between one and the other is a beautiful thing. Here's these lovely diagonals with here and here, and that's actually the moon setting over on the right. So it was kind of good, and it was kind of challenging. The moon was right in the middle of the Milky Way core. And there's an app that I use called Photopills, which you can literally show actively through the night exactly where it's going to be in the sky. And it literally moves and falls, as many of you know. And lining up sort of where it's going to be and where it's going to fall with features that kind of speak to it is a bit of a challenge. You can see I was starting to lean into, the diagonal here and another diagonal here. That's going to kind of match up pretty well. And that was sort of something I leaned into. And this is probably my favorite picture of the night.
That's cool, yeah.
Because it has this wonderful diagonal flow both through the sky and the foreground as well. And just that, that only lasted maybe a minute, where it was just on the horizon like that, because it's normally
just real cool, yeah.
Blob in the sky. So, and I think I did one.
And as we said, it's not every day that sort of situation lines up, over the year. You've got a certain time frame to get that.
forgot my car was in the shot, but at the same time, I kind of like it, and you can see it sort of adjusting to the noise.
I love the reflection of the Milky Way there. That's very cool. Yeah.
Very, very slow to load. There you go. So yeah, so it was about waiting and getting the timing right on that kind of particular structure and feature. So it was a little bit lucky. I got to thank Lukey for getting me out there. And the funny thing was, I was saying, "Oh, where should I go, Lukey? Where shall I go?" And then I ran out of range before he could give me any suggestions. And then the next morning, he gives me a suggestion to go to this place, and it's exactly where I went.
Classy.
So he was going to tell me to go there anyway. So anyway, I'll jump back off again. But I just thought, well, while we're talking,
no, it's awesome. It's good to mix it up. I'll just go back and show you a few of these, and then I'll go on to my next wee subject here. The autumn leaves, as you probably know, are pretty big in the Mackenzie country. So this is just a
Rachel, what's for people that don't know, how would you describe where Mackenzie country is? What are the boundaries?
So the Mackenzie region is part of the Canterbury and Christchurch region. So Mackenzie is I don't know the exact border, but it's like Geraldine Fairlie Highway. So Fairlie, you might have heard of that. It's got a famous pie shop. So everybody kind of goes there on the way through. So you go from Christchurch, Geraldine Fairlie, and then it goes up to Lake Tekapo, Aoraki, Mount Cook, and Omarama, Twizel, all around there. So that's pretty much the boundary, approximately. And so it's a beautiful alpine environment. People don't often realise how alpine it is there, but it has the real direct 4 seasons every year, which is pretty special. It's one of my most favourite places to take photos in New Zealand, because you just always never know what you're going to get, what conditions. We get hoar frost, we get autumn leaves, we get spring, winter, summer. Like it's just there's so much going on. Being in a dark sky reserve, it's the biggest gold rated dark sky reserve in the world. It's got amazing dark skies. There's probably 25 places I take people to in the Mackenzie for stars, depending on the day and where they want to go and what they want to shoot. So that kind of leads into what I was going to say, is that when I started my business, I decided to start an astrotourism business. So that was quite a challenge, because I had to learn a lot of stuff in a real short space of time. See if I can find an astro picture here. That's Fiordland at the Bowen Falls, one of my fave handhelds. That's also up at Fiordland at the waterfalls on the way into Lake Marion there. Here we go. Here's one of my faves. This is Lake Tekapo or Takapo, Rising Milky Way. That would have been that's the Church of the Good Shepherd. People would have possibly heard of that before. It's one of the most Instagram churches in the world. I think in 2017 it was the most Instagram place in New Zealand or something. So this is a really cool place for astrophotography, and it's quite easy to get to, and you can pretty much just jump out of your car and take that photo, which is really cool. Freezing cold in the winter time, but that's where you get the fresh skies. I think there was 2 or 3 images stitched together on a portrait, like a shot at portrait across.
Rachel, we just had a question from the audience. Are the deciduous trees native to New Zealand?
Not a lot of the time, no. They're probably from England.
Yeah, I would assume as much as well. It's certainly not Tasmania. We have 4 colours here, but there's actually only one plant that has deciduous capacity in Tasmania, and it only grows above 800 meters. And
I think most of them willows or something, and a few others. Yeah, but a lot of those trees would have come out here when they first came out here from England. Actually, funny that, isn't it? A lot of stuff's getting chopped down around here at the moment because of some of those reasons. So let's hope they don't chop those ones down. That's another conversation. But started my astrotourism business because I had a passion for astrophotography and the stars. I felt like I had a wee bit of talent for it, and I knew it was an up and coming industry, and that people were, desperate to go out and take an astro photo, but they had no idea how to even get their camera off auto. And that's something that I've realized with a lot of people who start photography, as they shoot on auto with these beautiful fancy cameras. and they don't even know where to start. So I kind of got a bit excited about helping people to get their first astro photo. And you can imagine if you've done it with someone or yourself, to see the look on their face when they, in back of camera saw their first Milky Way shot. I don't know why, but it just gave me a real buzz, and I just love it. And I just love to teach them how to do it and give them the skills to go away and keep shooting. So that was my business back then, and I had a really amazing, very successful, very profitable business for 2 years. And then 2020, what happened then, and pretty much lost everything, had to start all over again. It's been a rough freaking ride, but I'm still here.
Yeah, me too.
I've pulled on all my skills and all my talents and had to figure out how to stay in the game. So I'm quite stoked about how I've done that and what it's brought me. And that's when I started doing photography workshops for Kiwis. So that was a bit of a stretch. I've worked with a few other good photographers. I partnered up with Megan Maloney and some other photographers that I'll talk about later that I work with to do New Zealand photography workshops with Kiwis. And we were really lucky that a lot of people decided they wanted to support local because of everything that was happening, and we established a really cool photography workshop business. So this is one at Fiordland and Dusky Sound. I don't know if anyone's ever been here, but this is one, like, I call this not Lord of the Rings, that's the other one. I call this Jurassic Park country. It's just so crazy and untouched. And I stayed on a boat overnight, 3 nights in these coves with a company called Pure Salt. Absolutely changed my life. Like, I was just like, what on earth am I doing? How did this happen? Ended up on this boat with a film crew, yet again another synchronicity, who run this hunting show. One of them's a big Kiwi actor, become mates with them. Lots of things have been happening with them too, and probably will end up possibly doing some sort of a show together in the future. Just real cool stuff. And so I was the only one that got up for this sunrise this day, and the boat was moving a wee bit, just slightly, because you're actually in the sea there. Took that shot, but literally stuck my camera outside and handheld, and came out pretty cool. So I was pretty stoked with that. Glenorchy, you probably know this wharf, possibly. Glenorchy Wharf, pretty well.
Yeah, I didn't get there.
Michael John's Wharf.
I spent too much time up in Aoraki and Twizel country to get, even though I was dropping my car off at Queenstown, I sort of didn't have the extra day up my sleeve to go down there and spend time.
Yeah, I'll have to take you next time you come, because this is real cool down here. Yeah, so that was a 3-stitch image with the filters, which is not really my normal, but I just wanted to try something different. So I quite like that, something bit more fine art. Down at Fiordland again, this is Herman. I reckon a lot of people have got a photo of this bird. He's quite the local.
Herman.
Quite the local. He's been photographed quite a bit for NZ Geographic competitions and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Does he respond to Herman?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. He's not really scared of people. So that was kind of cool, just on a workshop. This is out of a plane at Fiordland, out of a wee Cessna. I was trying to get the sunset, but just didn't quite do. But I still love it.
People aren't sure. Like, Hoelen is the bottom southwest corner of Te Waiponami, the South Island, and it's easily the most rugged and remote part of New Zealand.
Oh, absolutely is. Yeah.
Like, there's probably areas there still that no human foot has ever touched.
Yeah, this would be.
Oh,
it's untouched in many places. This would be a nice print. It's one of those sort of shots that people would buy for a print. I sell a lot of prints, so I guess that's what's in there. This is a trip I did with you at Kaikoura. We went on this whale hunt, not literally, but in a helicopter. So when we came back from NZIPP, and we were with a couple of other mates, and with my partner Andrew, he got a call to say that there was a southern right whale and its baby in the bay, and he was like, oh, what are you guys doing? Do you want to come out for a heli flight to photograph a whale?
I was sitting in
our first adventure, wasn't it, Paul?
I was sitting in the car with him when So basically, with that story of Rachel put me up at 7 a.m, we did a carpool with Andrew in the front, and at one stage I swapped over to spend some time with Andrew, who I didn't really know yet, and he's an amazing commercial working photographer in Kaikoura, and very well established and very, very good at what he does. And he obviously had a great working relationship with these guys and regularly does stuff with them. And literally the phone rang just as we were coming into Kaikoura, which is pretty much a fluke, because you don't know how long a whale and a calf is going to remain. That they might just take off. And he said, looked at me and said, "Oh, how do you feel like about a chopper flight?" And I was like, "I twist my arm," And so we zipped on in there and went straight up in one of those beautiful, is it the E150s? Gorgeous, gorgeous chopper with this huge bell-shaped dome in the front. One of the best visibility choppers I've ever flown in my life. And I was in the back left corner thinking, oh yeah, I'm just along for the ride. I won't get too much. And it turns out that's where the sliding door was.
Best seat.
And it was brilliant. So I was just like, oh, bonus.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was one of the shots I took of the sea on that trip, and I think I've got another one here of the whale. But so those little whales are quite rare to see like that too, by the way. This is also Kaikoura, an astro shot that I did with a shooting star, which is really cool because these days a lot of the stuff you see is satellites. Yeah. You might remember they had a big 7.8 earthquake there a few years back, and it lifted up the seafloor, some places between 10 and 2 meters. Pretty crazy. So it's quite interesting shooting there now because it's quite different. So I used to live here for 7 years. So
I didn't realize
babies little.
It's like that was huge. I mean, wasn't it essentially the main highway from the north was shut down for what, a year,
Yes.
year and a half? Or?
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Basically, the land got like lifted up and pushed forward, or tilted from the sea up, and it's incredible to drive that road now. What they've done, the people who fix that road are absolute heroes. Like, unbelievable what they've done to create that. And so you might also know that this area is very well known for marine life and fishing and whales, dolphins, crayfish, all that kind of stuff. But there's also pretty cool dark skies up in the Seaward Mountains, which is just a new application to apply for a dark sky status there. So I've been doing a bit of work around there, doing some astro shots, and I've got some future projects that I'm doing there, which is cool. So that's another one at Lake Tekapo, a client that I took out, or actually a friend who I took out, just a pretty cool single image, but an air glow there. You can see that green. You get quite a bit of air glow up in the mountains sometimes. That's
normally a certain color. Is it normally green?
Green or like a pinky orange usually. So it's particles of some sort of sulfur, or whatever, some sort of chemical out there in the universe that shows up. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. This is at Lake Alexandrina, but with the zoom lens looking through to this mountain range here, which is called Hell's Gate. It was one of the first snowfalls. Just liked the light on that one. That's the same spot just around the corner. Took somebody here for a sunrise shoot. These are just some of my faves. Lake Marion. That was a pretty crazy scenario. That was I've sprained my ankle there. If anyone who's been to Lake Marion, you know what the track's like. It's straight uphill and straight downhill. Pretty rough track, and sprained my ankle. So excited to see this view. Fell in a rabbit hole. Dropped my camera. Luckily, nothing happened to the camera. And had to use my tripod. Strap my ankle. Put it in the cold water for a bit. Strap my ankle, and had to use my tripod as a crutch to get back down to the vehicle. So that was one of those days where you just go, okay, slow down. But that was in summertime, so you don't have the same snowy area there, but it's quite cool. Lake Oha, which is near Twizel in the Mackenzie, quite a special lake, and the area you'll see a lot of Will Patino shots from here, or trying to think of the other guy's name, will come to me, because there's quite a few Aussie photographers come here for shots, who do workshops and stuff like that. Pretty cool spot, and gets covered in snow in the winter. That was on a workshop. This is the same exact, so that one there, that mountain there, and that mountain there, the same mountain. It's just around the corner on the other side. So this is a 22 stitched image pano of the Milky Way and the Magellanic Cloud there. I've sold heaps of this picture. It seems to be one of my most purchased images for Astro, which is interesting because not a lot of people sell canvases and prints of Astro pictures generally. It's more landscapes. This is a Lake Pukaki or Pukaki, Mount Cook, and behind the cloud at the back there on a real rough northwest sunrise. Just really like that one. Another Astro at Lake Ruataniwha, which is in Twizel. It's quite a cool wee spot there. There's about 10 different options to take shots there. So, and that's got a bit of autumn leaves on it, that one as well, which is pretty cool. I take clients here quite a lot for one night, if they're coming for one night and they just want to learn how to take a photo. That was the aurora behind me, and I just stepped in at the last few seconds of that shot. So there's a bit of a profile of me. We Astro selfie at the same lake, the Ruataniwha. That was a bit of fun. Lake Tekapo, the Lord of the Rings was filmed up in that Godly Peaks Valley there over to the left. So a lot of people probably know of that. Beautiful aqua blue water. I don't really use the saturation slider in my editing, so it's pretty accurate to the color there.
Is that a
Sorry, I'll go back.
philosophical thing, a choice? Like, what's your
it's just my style. I guess I try and shoot best in camera I can, and always shooting for the light. That's the highlights and the light. That's my way I shoot. And I guess I don't know, maybe it's just the way I do things. It's just I try and keep things as natural as I saw them, because that's how I like to take pictures.
Yeah. Is that did you need a trigger to get that one, or did you just have an exposure?
This is an absolute fluke, to be really honest. So it was this.
I got nothing like it my whole life. So yeah.
Really hard photo to get. So this was a massive, massive storm. You can see, like, at the bottom right hand side, there's a wee piece of lightning at the bottom of the tree that's going right into the lake.
Yeah.
As well. I wanted to drive down there and take these pictures, but I was too scared to take my tripod outside because I wasn't sure if it was going to become a conductor. I was literally opened the sliding door of this house that I was staying at and just took heaps and heaps and heaps of pictures, and it was just literally a fluke that I pressed the shutter at the right time, pretty much. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I
made a comment online the other night about getting lucky with the Astro photos I got the other night, and I got a message back from Tony Hewitt saying, in my experience, you tend to make your own luck.
Well, let's go with that. That sounds good.
Yeah, which has a lot of philosophy behind it. It's quite an interesting comment.
I was a bit worried because the carpet was pretty wet after that. It was pouring rain as well. Yeah. Milford Sound, Mitre Peak. This is one of my top 10 pictures that I love that I've ever shot. Handheld. Was at the airport about to get on a flight, whipped my head around, saw this scene and just snapped this picture. Literally was one of those moments.
Wow.
It was just moody. Yeah.
There's so much emotion in this image, Rachel. It's sort of, I've as much as I've seen a lot of photos of the peak, I haven't seen one like this that feels like this, that it's really deeply present, and it's probably a bit more closer and more intimate in your face than a lot of the scenes which are wider and sort of more about the wider landscape and the context, and this is more about the peak itself.
I just was one of those. I do this a lot. Because I handheld a lot. It was one of those moments that I just saw it with my creative eye, and I was like, "That's the shot." And I use back button focus a lot, so I was just able to quickly whip that up, and I don't know. I do that a lot. I'll be like somewhere in the car and I'll just stop the car, jump out and take a photo, and that's my photo,
Yeah, same.
just intuitive. Another wee astro shot. That's a single image at Mount Cook. That's not Mount Cook itself, but the ranges. I like to do a single image just to see what's possible. A lot of people stack their images and all that, and that's great, and that's fine, but it's not what I do. I just like to get the best single image possible. I don't know why, but it's a real thing for me. Yeah.
Oh, it's more like the other way around. I don't know why people want to spend the time having to stuff around on computers and taking a zillion photographs when there's one good one, right?
I mean, with my camera, I'm lucky that it's pretty good for that. So, yeah.
So you're actually, somebody asked what your setup was, and I said
Canon 6D Mark 1, so I'm still old school. I've got two 6Ds because when I take clients out, they don't always have the right gear. So 6D Mark 1, for Astro, I generally use my Samyang 24mm f1.4, but I'd usually only shoot f2.8, the lowest I'd shoot in there anyway. Sometimes I'll shoot on a Tamron 15 to 30. It depends on what I'm trying to achieve. I'm just looking into getting a 35mm f1.4 possibly, because I do a lot of stitched panos, and I like to have big files because quite often people want to buy them for wallpapers or kitchen splashbacks or big prints. I just like the whole process of that as well. It's a challenge to shoot it and stitch it and get it right and all that. This is also in the Aoraki Mount Cook National Park in the lake at the Mueller Glacier. You might have stood on that little bridge that goes across the first spring swing bridge at the Hooker Valley track, and this is the river just below there. So I climbed down in there, and just one day I was just on a wee solo adventure, getting a bit of filling up my cup, which is not a common thing for me because I'm usually got someone with me.
That was the last place I got to was standing on that bridge, and it was so dark I could hardly even take a photograph with my iPod. I was trying to it was right after I spent the day with you actually, and up on the glacier, and went racing around trying to just refamiliar myself with all the different lookouts and places. And yeah, it's such a classic spot to go, but it's always different and
always different. Yeah. It was quite icy there that day actually.
Yeah.
Here's another one of my favorites. Single image. It's just not long after blew out, and that was a lot of air glow there, that color at the Hooker Glacier there, Mount Cook, Aoraki Mount Cook. You can see a couple of satellites on the top of the image there. I tend not to Photoshop stuff out because I like it the way it was. A lot of people will probably take that out, but I just leave it there.
Is air glow something that you can kind of predict, or it's just a total unknown, or certain conditions?
No, it's completely just random. I think because it's dark sky reserve, it's more obvious.
Yeah, possibly.
I have my theories, but I'm not going to talk about that. As to why things. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. It seems to have been a lot more. Well, I've only been doing it for 5 years, but from what I've seen, it seems to be a lot more there in the last couple of years than ever was before. But maybe it used to be like that before. I don't know. This is one of my favorite single images at the Tasman Glacier. That's on the wide angle on the 15 to 30 Tamron G2, which is a really good lens if you want to just, get a cool composition and not have to do all the stitching and everything. A lot of clients will use that when they come out. So you can see it's pretty cool. Pretty cool place to go. I take a lot of people there for guided trips. That's the same place, just during the day. Couple of people I've got on in fact, actually, we were shooting a video there that day. This is at Lakestone Lodge. So
that was one of our entourage on the road trip down to the Wales.
This is at Lakestone Lodge at the head of Lake Pukaki. I'll talk about this because I take a lot of workshops here, and it's a beautiful place to stay at the top of the lake. So this was one of the clients who was into light up hoops. So those are hula hoops. So we just played around and did some cool shots. in there. So that's a really cool place to stay if you're looking for somewhere nice.
What's it called again, Rach?
Lakestone Lodge.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I stayed at a very basic setup at the top of Bukaki. I don't remember what that one was, but I was thinking if I wanted
pretty cool. There's lots of options. Yeah. This is over the Franz Josef Glacier. I just like the line in this shot. Out the wee small plane window. Here we go. Here's our whales. I should have had them in the right order. Here's our southern right whale from the trip we did.
And the calf.
And calf, yeah. Kaikoura. This shot took me, I put this in here because this took me probably 6 trips to get this shot. You know, when you go to those places that you just have a vision in mind and you just don't get it and you don't get it and you keep going back. And I was pretty stoked to finally get this shot, or close to what I'd been envisaging.
And was that because of the amount of water that you needed, or?
Yeah, well, this is the Stirling Falls in Milford Sound. So as you're on a boat, you're going into the sound. It's because it's pumping down the waterfall, you're getting soaking wet. Your camera's getting wet. So you literally have to have a bit of a system of a towel, and you know how you're going to hold your camera. You've got to have all your settings ready before you even get camera out to take the shot, because it gets soaked and your whole self is soaked. So you've got to have, you know, your little piece that's sticking out. The rest of yourself covered in waterproof gear, and you know, continually trying to keep your camera dry.
It's not just waterfalls and Hoelen, it's the wettest place in New Zealand by a country.
Yeah. It wasn't actually raining here, but it was, yeah, they'd had a lot of rain beforehand. So you've had Will Patino on the show, you know what I mean by that. But a lot of the best photos down there are taken after a storm, or just, you know, literally during a storm. It's pretty cool.
Particularly through the valley, because the waterfalls just light up.
This is an ICM at Twizel, just on a workshop that I recently did. I sold a few of these type of pictures for prints. That was a sunrise.
Oh, sunrise. Okay, yeah, because I went down to Twizel and hoping to catch a bit of aurora action, but yeah, I stumbled around and found some beautiful spots on the lake shores there. It's quite lovely.
There's lots of cool spots. Yeah, this is under the Tasman Glacier. Not our trip, but
I was going to say we didn't get to see that one, Rach. What happened on our trip? I was like, oh, that's what I was.
So the thing about this is one of my passion projects as well, as I take people here. But I'm so blown away by this place every time I go. It's forever changing every day.
Yeah,
it's 1,000-year-old at least ice under the ground. It's melting at quite a rapid pace. It's not going to always be there. So the actual privilege to capture it is never lost on me. And so I've developed this product to take people there for guided photography trips, because it's so important to record it. My passion project I have is to actually make a documentary about it. Not quite sure how we're going to fund that yet, but that's something I'm putting out there and talking to people about, because someone will pop up who wants to be a part of it. And
I felt my hand going up straight away. Like, yes, please.
Yeah, I want to record that history, and this is something I thought was really cool to talk about as well, is that you know, a lot of places where I have taken photos are now not the same as they were before, and you'll know this too. Like, you go to certain places and the landscape changes due to varying reasons, or earthquakes, or you know, trees being cut down, or whatever it is, or you know, all sorts of different things, or the river shifts to a different place. And we have a lot of that happen here in New Zealand. Our landscape's actually forever changing in that way, and we have had some massive flooding over the last few months. So yeah, it's just really interesting. I think as photographers, we actually don't always remember that we're creating history by recording history, and you know, maintaining those images for future. And you know, these days technology is so amazing that it's pretty easy to be able to do something with that. And you know, in 50 years time, and people look back and go, wow, that was cool. You don't see that now. So always love the idea about that.
like to carry on with the story. Might as well bring it up now because we're right here. So I got to do the whale thing with Andrew, who was just messaging on the YouTube channel just before, actually. Hey, Andrew. And I got to the end of the night. I was like, geez, where am I going to sleep tonight? And I did the usual Hoelen thing and put my name out to a few local photographers who didn't have me, and ended up in a little pod where Rachel dropped me off. And just close to before she dropped me off, she's like, why don't you try ringing up one of these camper companies and see if they've got a relocator. It doesn't happen very often, but you never know your luck. And sure enough, the first place I rang said, oh, we've got one that's just coming tonight. It's ready in the morning. And I worked out on the map, it was 2 minutes from where I just happened to be staying. So I literally walked there, and I thought I was going to have a day or two to take this thing to Queenstown. And they said, oh, no, how long do you want? And I was like, how about a week? And they're like, sure. And Rachel and I have been talking about the Tasman Glacier trip and getting up there. And she was talking about going up there and this very thing that she'd been working on, building a relationship with the local providers to run photo tours up here. And she put in a good word for me, and I put in a good word for myself. And I drove straight up in the Ford Ranger, and I waited a few days, one for Rachel to be ready, and two for the weather to clear for a window, which can be quite rare because it's an extreme alpine environment. You know, was it 3,400 meters or something, Aoraki, and it changes every day, and the coloration changes too. Like we arrived right after 2 days of rain, and that had basically places that you would have gone to the week before were underwater or literally didn't exist anymore. And your guide's actually out there trying to figure out like where people can actually go on the site, because it changes so fast. And we got this incredible coloration on the surface, which I think is quite rare. I think you can get a bit more color deeper down like this, but to have it on top is unusual. And literally by the time we got back on the top, there was like a third less color than when we probably started half a day earlier. And I think the color comes back through the air. The whitish, the color loses its color through the aeration of the ice on the surface.
When it's wet, it's blue.
Yeah. So actually, the image right behind me is from exactly that trip. So I've got to thank Rachel for these, because my plan A was out on the eastern side of western side of Hoelen with Jason, and my unexistent plan, thanks to Rachel, came to being was actually ended up flying around the Tasman Glacier and the Franz Josef and the Fox and all around the back of Aoraki and choppers, and then I landed and Rachel and I went up together on a guided glacier tour on the Tasman. So it's hard to describe it, isn't it, Rachel? It's a very powerful place to spend time, and you will not spend time there and not be moved or changed somehow for it, whether you can understand why or not. It's really incredible environment.
And I think just the whole, you look at the pictures and you go, oh wow, that looks cool, but when you're actually standing there, it's a real moment of being in awe for real. You're a speck of a dot, aren't you? And
the dynamism of it, I think there's probably nothing, arguably maybe the immediacy of an earthquake, that you become more present to the way the earth is changing through the way the climate's changing, and as alpine ice environments, because they literally change by the hour relative to the temperature and the weather around them. And if you go back to these places any time more than once in your lifetime, there's not many places historically that you'd go back and it's totally different every time you're there, and it's hugely receded, and it's becoming so visible now. It's quite full on, but it's
it's an amazing place,
yeah. So I'm really with you, Rachel, on that that documentation of something unique and special while it's here.
It's also quite hard to shoot, so that's the other thing. Like this photo is a photo someone else clicked the button for me, because that's me in the photo, but I took a photo of them and then left it set up for them to click it for me. But it was pitch dark in there, so you really have to get your photography skills going in these scenes when it's dark like that too. So there's and you can't, really can't take a tripod. well, you might be able to take one tripod between you all, but it's not the same as you know, having all the
well,
time.
I mean,
You've got no time. Like, you literally, the guide is telling you it's the wind's coming up, we've got to go climb back up because the helicopter's coming. You know, there's a whole bunch of like adrenaline, and I think that's why I love it too, because it's so you know, there's no certainty about it.
There's a real edge to it. Like walking around on crampons, just trying not to slip down into crevices and holes. And I mean, I don't envy the guides, to be honest. Like, having been here for a long time, I'm sort of like, the consequences up there are really significant if somebody slips in the wrong place, and you don't have complete control about where everybody puts every single footstep of theirs. So, and in such a dynamic environment, when you literally come back a day later and it's different from what you were guiding on the day before, there's a lot of both excitement, adventure, and risk, I guess, as a guide.
I don't think the risk's that high. Like, it's like walking around on concrete, but you can slip over if you're not careful, I suppose, like anything. But yeah, I never feel worried about it when I'm out there.
Well, I think having been a wilderness therapist for a long time, perceived risk is just as what people feel relative to their understanding of the actual risk or not.
Yeah.
So it feels like an edgy environment, even though it's well controlled and they're really safe and you have all the right gear and they know exactly what they're doing. There's still that feeling, that edgy feeling, and that's actually what makes it exciting. And
yeah, I guess that's true. The more times you go, the less that feels like that, I think, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think in a landscape that's just dynamic and powerful, you know, arguably less so. I can imagine maintaining that feeling most times I went up in an environment like this.
It's pretty cool.
You're right.
Here's another one you took of me.
Yeah, there you go. I remember saying to Rach as a thank you for helping get me up here and suggesting it and putting in a good word that I'd try and get some good profile shots for her, which I think I did all right.
Oh, I loved it. And I love that one of me climbing up the rope. So that's the other thing that's quite cool, is, you know, you challenge yourself too with that. So this is the same glacier that we were just standing on, but it's at the end. So the actual right up in the middle of the picture there where that mountain is, that's where this shot here is.
Yeah.
This is at the lake's end, and that's massive air glow in there.
Huge air glow. Far out.
And so there'd been a carving off the glacier of these icebergs. So that was a pretty cool time to go. Yet again, it's changing all the time. Those bergs are moving. It's quite hard to get those shots without moving foreground. So
yeah.
You know, you got to just get that. It's a panel, I think, of 3 shots, and you can see Araki Mount Cook on the left. It looks small there because it's a big picture, but it's sticking up. I don't know.
It is not a small mountain.
I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's there.
When I trained to be a professional guide, my instructor actually died on the slopes of Araki. He was guiding a group of people, and it was one of those edgy kind of spring trips where the pack wasn't as cohesive as people would like, and it was kind of like people had been doing it and getting through, but there was sort of an edgy air about it, and they made the call to give it a go, and they all lost their lives.
How sad.
This was
you're certainly in an alpine environment, and that is something to remember, I guess, when you're out doing these things. That was our same trip we went on, the heli landing in on the ice.
Such good pilot. Oh my
this
God.
One, I love this picture. It's just such a crazy scenario, and you see the top piece that we were walking on. Look what's like underneath. You got some good shots in here, didn't you?
Yeah. I'll
so this is the small heli. Can you see the small heli? This just gives the
I just saw it. Oh, but Jesus, it's tiny. Oh, wow.
I know. Tiny heli shot. I just love the perspective of that. It's so cool. It shows what it was like. Yeah. I'll come back to that.
Rach, before we if you're moving away from the ice things, do you mind if I show a couple of
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You'll
I've got a couple of other stuff to talk about before that one. Yeah.
You'll be included in some of these shots. Let me just find the folder. A couple of my promised there we are.
I think the thing about this environment is that you know, if people go to Mount Everest or they go to Mount Cook, I know it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of similar conditions. You know, it's an alpine environment. And it's really important to remember to have the right gear. It's very easy to get cold or get hypothermic. You know, you've got to make sure you got warm drinks and food and snacks and all that stuff, more than you'd expect, because there's nowhere to buy anything a lot of the time unless it's the middle of the day, you know.
Yeah, like it's pretty tucked away there. I'm just whipping through some of mine. I just before Rachel arrived, I managed to get on a big looping flight which went around the back of Aoraki and over to the west coast and back around again. And
beautiful.
It was just I mean, it's the
look at all those birds.
You know, like, yeah, people see a lot of figures and faces and different things sort of moving around this image. I was sort of trying to. It was a flight that I was just jumped on, so I had no direction over the flight. But we had Andy, who's one of the best pilots I've flown with, who Rachel knows really well.
Yeah.
So he knows where to position you, where to put you, and
beautiful.
Because I was just coming in as a sort of added extra to other people's trip at the last minute. So, but I certainly made the most of the time I had in the air, and I'd certainly be looking forward to coming back here and doing some more. I can tell you that.
I'm flying with them on Saturday for another heli bike, actually.
Oh, say good day from me. There's such a good crew there.
He's amazing. Yeah.
That's actually the west coast right there. As you can see the ocean on the western side. So Aotearoa's sort of more in the central west, as it were, of the Alps. And then yeah, it's rare you get, certainly in Australia, you don't get any glacial experiences at all, really. And there's something just really unique and sensual and really quite stunning about it. It's almost like they're their own entity, because relative to what's around them, they're moving and they're making all these sounds, and they just kind of talk to you, and they're so dynamic. So on the scale of how the world and the geology of things move and change, they're the blink of an eye relative to a lot of other features that we deal with in terms of the rock faces and different sort of valleys in particular. They're incredibly dynamic kind of element to our landscape. So it was really special. You can see how blue it was with the fresh rain, and literally when we were flying back down later that day, it was at least a third, if not a half, less blue than that. That's
what lens did you have on there? That's pretty cool.
I think I was using my 24-105 mainly, just because it had the image stabilization, and we were I was doing it on the fly. Like we weren't very static. And that's my background shot, actually, that I've got to show. Just purely textural based. You can see just the layer of snow and the crevices underneath and the rock structure. So here we are, just as part of the tour, you actually get to land on the top of one of the glaciers. And on the same day, they run skiing tours where they drop people right at the top, and they spend the whole half a day just skiing down the whole glacier, which is something I'd love to do. And the pilots in New Zealand in particular are easily some of the best in the world. And literally I landed, caught up with Rachel, and went straight back in another chopper up for the heli. And I was just like, it was like a dream come true. So I'll be owing Rachel for this for a long time. One place
you'll be all good.
One place that didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted is these, I don't know what you call them, ice falls or something. To me, they were the most dynamic and intriguing features I saw, but we just zipped past them.
Almost like wee mini avalanches turned into like a glacial looking thing. I don't know what you call them exactly, but yeah.
It's just like a frozen fall almost, the ones that are just vertical in the wall. This is a little bit further down, but you can get that sense of, they literally scour out the rocks. They have the power and the force to shape nature to literally scour rock away. And that's how most of the valleys in these glacial places have been formed in the first place, is by the power of that rotating, grinding force of the ice and the glaciers. And that sort of speaks to that a little bit. We can see that how it's almost grinding the rock away.
That blue showcase there too, like you're talking about before, is not always like that.
No, we got pretty lucky. Like in some ways, it was the very thing that almost stopped me having this opportunity at all, because it was raining. There was no windows to fly. And we literally got this small window, and I think it packed in again the next day for quite a while.
It did, yeah.
Was just this day. And even the pilots the night before didn't even think it was going to happen. So there's Richard, our super guide on this particular trip. And you can see the crampons there. And very, very considerate about where we walk, and literally there's holes and crevices in lots of different places, and if people aren't savvy, rock star Rachel.
Making me look good there, mate.
Looking pretty comfy out there, H. And then again, you know, like you can't quite. I need one of your little choppers in there to give it a sense of scale, H.
I'll Photoshop it out for you, and you put it in.
I got a couple, I think, where I got the chopper in there, but I don't think they put them in this particular set. But yeah, I just wanted to give you. And this, he said he'd hardly ever seen the waterfall pumping this strongly because it had so much rain. Always just more of a trickle, whereas it was more.
That was why we didn't go in the cave, because it was a bit dodgy.
Yeah, it was partly underwater, I think. And this was an area I would have just desperately loved to walk through, but it was really unsafe. He tried to find a way in for us, but it just, as you can see, that's rope, ladders, and you know, all sorts of, you know, equipment to keep safe in there, and tricky to get out. And you know, you're dealing with your everyday tourists, not necessarily specialized people that have specialized climbing skills. So you got to be a little bit realistic about what's safe and appropriate for take people in. But that being said, it's still just an absolute joy to be around it. And you just, as Rachel said, you just feel so small, and this massive environment, you know, just to give you a sense of scale. And it was surprisingly warm up there this day, wasn't it, Rach?
It was actually, yeah. I got quite hot.
Yeah, we were. I was sweating it. I think here we are, just waiting for the first of the choppers to come in, and they have very, very tightly controlled techniques about landings and getting people on. And there's Rach doing her thing, and yeah, just sweat. And there was a group that actually came down the valley here while we were up there, weren't they? You couldn't even tell they were even people. They were so tiny in a distance.
There's about 3 or 4 groups, I think, that day on there.
Yeah, and I think there'd been almost, you know, days and days of people not being able to go, and so a lot of people might stay in the valley and wait in the hope they might get a window, in which case, if you do get one, you know, everyone has a good crack at it. That being said, it didn't feel busy or anything at all. We certainly had pretty much the place to ourselves most of the time. It's not
like ants on the ice, wasn't it?
yeah. And I hadn't worn crampons for a long time, so that was always a little bit exciting. Getting used to, it's a different kind of walking technique and way of being in terms of getting in there. And I know Rachel and I talked about the day before, like whether we would have preferred it was straight sun as opposed to, you know, that's the soft light that we had. And I think when I still actually really enjoyed it just as it was. You might have got a touch more color, but you would have been dealing with all the contrast, and it would have been difficult to get the images you wanted in a single capture. Look at that, she's like, surprise.
I haven't even given you the photos I've taken of you in there yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember seeing them yet. Yeah,
got too much editing to do at the moment.
Yeah, it's the bane of being a photographer. Same feature that Rach pointed out. Very really intriguing to think what's underneath what just seems like a simple flat surface on the top. It opens up into a whole sort of another universe sort of underneath. But I'll just rip through. I think I've been through most of them. I'll give Rach back to the floor. Anyway, that'll probably do for me. Yeah, magnificent place to spend time. So your first person to go to is Rachel to spend time up here in particular.
Thank you.
She knows all the right people, and she's got a wonderful working relationship with all the guides up there, and she knows the weather wonderfully well, and build up your confidence. And she certainly got me up there, and I'll never forget that ever.
You're welcome. No, it was meant to be, eh? And I think I didn't say this to you, I don't think, but that day that we were there and we went into the office afterwards and caught up with all the pilots and that was a really emotional experience for me, because all of us had lost so much for 2 years, you know, and all those poor pilots had been put on, they get paid when they fly only, to keep them in work basically. And you know, it had been obviously a challenging time for tourism. Yeah. And that was the coolest day. The whole airport was flat stick. There were buses, cars everywhere. I was quite emotional, like just going, what is going on? This is so cool. You know, it'd been the busiest I'd ever seen it the whole time. And you know, I think we all kind of, without saying it too much, felt the same. Yeah. That it was just so awesome. Yeah.
You could feel it in the air, and you know, it was a really special kind of spark of fanning the flames and sort of hope coming back for everyone, because that was a very difficult few years, when you're relying on tourism and no one's allowed to come in and out of the country, or even travel anywhere.
I think the benefits of that is in business is that everybody's really is trying to work together with their local operators, which is really cool.
And I think it's partly where I got lucky in this case, because they hadn't had, many people come through for a few years. So getting some fresh imagery was actually really good timing for them. So I worked my ass off and gave them about 700.
Yeah, I was going to say you gave them a lot of shots, which was awesome.
Images which they were to use for years. So, and partly I felt that too. I was like, oh, you scratch my back, I'm going to give you my absolute best as well. And
really appreciate that, because it helps me as well. Yeah. And this is the thing about photography, like we all want to get paid and all the rest of it, but sometimes there's certain things that you do for a different reason and you're not always sure why it's going to happen or what it's going to do straight away. And I don't do a lot of freebies anymore, but I used to. But I think that's also every now and again you come across a couple of projects or things where you just go, actually, I'm going to put some effort into this, because yes, I'm going to get some cool shots, but there's maybe more to it later on down the track.
That was the same. I was kind of on holiday. 2, I was scouting potentially for workshops myself, and 3, just excited to do something with Rachel. So it just ticked all the boxes on so many levels for me. And goodness knows what it would have cost to go do an entire day flying around choppers in the Southern Alps of New Zealand on your own.
The way petrol prices are, it's doubled since 2019. The hourly rate price has doubled. Yeah. Anyway, we're really lucky, and I think I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about this last bit. Is my purpose and reason for why I run my business, and how I go about it and stuff like that, because I think that's all nice to share the pictures, but a lot of times people go, well, that's all cool for you, but what about me? So I shared a bit of my story earlier, but I think also you've got to have, I was talking to actually a friend of mine about this earlier today, and she's a business owner, but she doesn't work in photography. She works in yoga, and we were talking about strategies and, just everything about how we each run our businesses. We're both single mums. She's got 3 kids. I've got 3 kids. They're actually all staying with me at the moment. I've got 9 people here today. So I was like, everybody up to Wi-Fi, please.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
But I love it. I love it, and we just juggle it. And we've been out playing at the driving range, taking kids out for golf and having a great time. Had pizza for dinner, living the dream. No dishes. But this is the thing, like we're so down to earth because we've got all that going on as well, right? And I was just saying to her, everything in photography that I do is mostly learnable or teachable and learnable, and then you have a little piece that's talent. So I was just talking to her about how I do things and what I do and why, and etc., and anyone can learn that if they've got the passion to desire to want to, and then you've got to find your wee piece where your talent is. So for me, my talent is not shooting people. I can do it, but it's not my best work, if that makes sense. So my passion is the landscape. My passion is looking way out to the mountains. My passion is not really seascapes. I can do a seascape, but my passion is the mountains. Adventures, climbing up the hill to get a different perspective, whatever, it's astrophotography, it's landscapes. That's my passion. I just tend to have a natural eye for that. And so everybody is a photographer. You have your own wee natural piece of talent there. And sometimes people forget about the talent or go for all the skills and all the training and all the learning, thinking that they'll be a better photographer because they do all of that. But I think you've got to really keep the balance. And I often think about the best camera is the one that you got on you in the moment. Sometimes it's your phone, and sometimes you might not have the right lens, but you got an opportunity to take an amazing photo anyway. or you might have a drone, or you might, I don't know, you've got whatever you've got on you that day. You don't have a tripod, so why not try and shoot it handheld, all of that. And, depends on what gear you're using as to how long you can shoot a handheld for these days. My camera can't do it like a lot of others. If you've got a Sony A7R4 or an R5 or something, you can probably shoot up to 1 second handheld these days, but not on the DSLR. So, it's all relative to the moment you're in that you want to capture. So for me, it's the love of the capture is more important than all the other bits, because you could be standing there, the light's amazing, and then you run back to the car to get a piece of gear and then the light's gone. And who hasn't done that? And I did get the shot. So I think it's really important to have the love for the capture and trust yourself that whatever it is you've got with you, just use it, do it, give it a whirl. As my business, I talked a little bit before about being a single mum. So because I have my kids 24/7, they don't go to their dads at all. I had to find a way to make it work, and my kids were quite little when I first started. So that was where astrophotography became a really good way for me to get good at photography, because I would work when they were asleep. So I had my, my schedule planned out, and I would have a babysitter organised for the bookings that I had. So having my diary set up and having all my support structure set up is really crucial. And whether you got kids or not, it's relevant. You still should do this, and I think sometimes we think we've got all the time in the world, and we sort of have. But I was always about, being sold out to my vision, my goals, my dreams, whatever it was I wanted to achieve, but also knowing that I needed to be super organized, because if one thing wasn't organized, then nothing would work. So I think having your diary super focused onto what you're actually doing is really important. So the other thing I think is really cool as well is, for me, because I didn't have a lot of money, I decided to invest into adventures and going places rather than buying extra lenses. Or I shot all my astrophotography on a shitty travel tripod for 2 years. It was the shittiest tripod you've ever seen. But at that time, that was all I had, so I had to make it work, and then as I started guiding people, I bought a new tripod because it became obviously an issue. And sometimes there are things you need to get for that reason, but also I was having a bit of trouble at times when it was windy, or just different scenes or scenarios where I needed a heavier tripod for doing certain shots, and all of that. But that didn't stop me from achieving what I wanted. I just made it work. And so I think it's really important to look at all those things. So for me, I spent money on adventures, petrol, travel, and all of that before I started buying more gear. Now I have a bit more gear, but I still probably don't have that much gear compared to a lot of professional photographers, to be fair.
Yeah, like Andrew. I saw your kid, Andrew. I want your
shot.
Kid,
What's that?
If he's listening, I'm like, yeah, I want your kit, mate. He's got quite the setup.
I'm not allowed to touch it.
Oh,
no, only joking.
He loaned me his 100 to 500 RF lens. I was trawling over. I just went down the driveway and got some of my photographs of the whole trip, which was the beautiful peaks of Kaikoura above the ocean, just covered in snow. Yeah, thanks again, Andrew, and thanks for being such a legend and getting us up on the chopper to shoot whales. That's a pretty good way to meet someone, isn't it?
Hopefully you'll get sick of that lens so I can use it soon, eh?
It's caring.
Yeah, so I mean, there are obviously times when having good gear is essential depending on what project you're doing, but you can also rent and hire gear as well. We'll have nice friends. But yeah, one of the big things I thought too was something to talk about is being a female photographer, and astrophotography can be quite an interesting dynamic sometimes. And I think one of the things I did at the start, which I wished I had thought more about and have learnt from, and I thought was good to share, is not to compare yourself to others, because we've all got different lives and stories and dynamics, and I can't go out for 7 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours or whatever for the night and shoot. So often I'd have maybe a 2-hour window, so I'd be like having to plan out with photo pills or Sky Safari or whatever apps you use, looking on Moon Giant and places like that, making sure I was going at the exact right time to get the shot that I had in my mind. I'd go and recce it during the day, look at my foregrounds, see where I was going to stand, all of that stuff, plan that out as much as possible beforehand. And then I often would show up at a place, take, my 20 shots or whatever and go home. That shot I showed you earlier on of the big panorama of the Milky Way, Lake O'Hare, I had the kids in the car, drove to that spot, took 22 shots, didn't even check them, got in the car, drove home, hoped it was good. And it was just one of those scenarios where it was either that's how it was going to happen or it wasn't going to happen at all that day. So luckily for me, they were all in focus and good, and I stitched them together and it was a nice shot. So had it not have worked, I would have had to go back, obviously another time, and I was lucky enough to live there that I could do that. But and I think comparison in photography, or anything in life, but particularly in photography, it really exaggerates your own insecurities. And I think because I'd been through the domestic abuse stuff, and I was still working on myself during that time, because that took me quite a long time to regain, I guess, my confidence as a person. It brings out those insecurities, and maybe we're not always the best version of ourselves if we're comparing ourselves to others. So it's really important to just be yourself, do your own thing, shoot the way you want to shoot, do it how you want to do it. Who cares? It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or how many likes you're going to get on it or whatever. Doesn't matter how many followers you got. I've probably got the least amount of followers of most professional photographers on Instagram, but I have one of the more successful businesses because I have relationships. So I think that's important to remember, because sometimes we get caught up with all the hype of all of that.
I feel like we need to pause on that, because it's a very, very powerful statement, Rachel, that you just made, and I think it's a huge part of photography is this comparative world of sharing work online and constantly. And even 25 years down the track, I still get impacted by it. And sometimes I think I just you've got to be feeling pretty strong in yourself to just appreciate work for the sake of work, and not introduce that comparison element. In there.
It's about staying grateful.
They're presenting is a sliver of their life. It's not the big picture, and it's often not a very holistic or comprehensive one. But the fact that you're running a very successful business without having to spend all that time slaving over likes and subscribes is a very telling reminder for everyone, I think, Rachel, that's pretty serious about getting into it. Because I know some people that wouldn't even start thinking, I don't have a big enough following, and it's kind of like,
I think I've got like 2,600 followers or something. I don't even know the number. Like, who cares? But my engagement rate's really high. So like my recent Instagram stuff I did, I got 46,000 accounts exposed or something, and I've got 2,600 followers or whatever. So my engagement rate's real high. So that's more of interest to me, is the statistics, not how many of all the other stuff. And people scroll past and never like all the time, and I find that because people will say to me, oh, love that picture you did of so-and-so, and I know they haven't engaged or commented or liked or whatever, so don't assume that just because someone doesn't like your picture that they're not watching or looking, or especially clients. And I think it's really important to live your own creative experience, because that's that holistic approach again. It brings longevity and sustainable business, and basically be authentic, be real, be, so I call it the no bullshit approach. No
trouble with that from you, Rach.
Yeah. My friends laugh at me because unfortunately I'm a bit of a swearer. Comes from the horse days, I think. And I'm just like, we have a bit of a standing joke with all our friends, and Stace, who you met, and a few of us, and where our standing thing is, oh, that sounds great, but that's not going to work for me, thanks. Or that's a no from me. That's kind of our standard sort of a it's a bit of a joke piss take, but it's actually not, it's true, and sometimes it's just the way you work and go about how you're going to do things or who you're going to do them with. And I find in New Zealand that we're a small community, and there's a little bit of ego running around here and there, let's just say that, and it can stop people from going out and being their best selves, because we can't all be the same. And if I was to worry about what people thought about me being a single mum, a female, I mean, unfortunately, that's still a thing, a lot. And, somebody who doesn't have a fancy camera and rah, I'd never achieve anything, because I'd sit at home and feel bad about myself. Whereas I'm just like, great, it's a great day. I'm loving life. I'm going out to be present in my moment and enjoy my environment. And if I get a cool photo, great. And if I don't, I've had a great day out there just being in nature, And so I apply that to my business, because if I take a photo I love, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And I think we lose that in business a lot too, because we go, oh, what does the client want, or what does so-and-so want? Well, actually, the person employed me to be my creative self, so why don't I just go and do that? And so then your tribe shows up, the people that love you, the people, and then those people will repeat buy from you, because they trust you, they know you, you're their person, you're their photographer, and Andrew's very good at this. You end up with people who buy from you multiple times because they love the experience, and then they might love the picture they created that you happen to be a part of the process. So I think it's all that trusting in yourself. If you love what you do, you will attract other people who want to do the same. For me in my business, it's all about seeing other photographers shine, because I want their work to improve and be amazing. And that's my ultimate sort of stoke. And if they take a better picture than me, I'm just absolutely so excited about that. And I think I'm quite unique in that way.
Yeah, we were having a chat before the show started, and Rachel made that exact statement, and it really hit me, actually. Like, she's probably right. It's sort of like you almost feel obligated. I think some workshop leaders that, you've got to show you're the top of the pops, or else why would they be coming out with you? And really, that's a very egotistical kind of approach. Not as an arrogant, but as in it's caught up in the realm of ego, as opposed to the realm of service, where we are offering a service to people to support them to grow and evolve and celebrate something they love and become better at it. And that achievement, is the way Rachel very clearly describes it as more paramount. And I really respect that. I'm about to go out on a few big workshops, and
thank you.
I'm going to keep that very, very freshly in mind, Rach. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's great to compare yourself to people in terms of mentors, or not even compare is not the word, but it's great to have mentors or people you follow who you love their work and stuff like that, who you just go, wow, that's so cool, and I'd love to be able to achieve that and whatever. That's great, but don't make it that you're less than because you haven't shot that photo yet. A lot of the time, and you'll know this, the picture's relative to being in the right place at the right time too. Yes, we put ourselves in the environment, but we're also slave to the weather, especially over here anyway. Yeah, and it's the more time to show up. You would have heard this, I'm sure, in business, that half the battle is showing up. So show up, keep showing up, show up again, show up 50 times, and actually you might get somewhere because you've showed up and showed up and showed up and showed up. It's easy to sit at home on Instagram scrolling. It's easy to talk about other people and bitch and moan and whatever else, and I just have no time for that. I'm just like, yep, sweet, okay, cool. And I was talking about this with another friend the other day. There's a saying that everyone's probably heard about, is the 5 people that you spend most of your time with is who you become. And I really thought about that actually recently and thought, I don't know if I'm real happy about that picture. And just, I don't know, like it's hard sometimes, especially because you can get really involved in your, like for me, my school mum community or whatever, doing day-to-day stuff. And I have to choose not to do those projects and activities sometimes because I want to grow my business. And I have to be okay with myself going, you know what, I'm not going to be at that thing, or I'm not going to be the mum that's at the bake sale thing or whatever. And because I've got bigger plans, and it's okay to say, okay, I'm going to be the best mum I can to my kids, but I don't have to spend all my time doing that. And so I'm quite strong on that, because it's the times that you sacrifice some of that stuff and keep it in balance that you actually achieve some of your greatest things. So turn off your telly. I don't have a telly. I don't even have one. So yeah, but people doing binge watching on Netflix when they could be doing this podcast. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's all a choice. We can't blame anyone else. We've got to choose our path. And and if you're not sure about how to do all this, do a passion project. And that was sort of the next thing I wanted to talk about. And I've got a couple of photos here. So a passion project is, share my screen. For me, this is one of my passion projects, is the wild Kaimanawa horses in the North Island. This particular photo is of some tamed wild horses on a farm. I'll just click through there. That guy's actually not, but this is some of the photography I've done with the wild horses crew. This is actually after these horses have been tamed. So they were, he's a couple, I'll just try and find the flick through these. Right, so I went on this wild horses photo tour out in the wild Kaimanawas, which is on army land in the ranges in the North Island. And these horses are basically, they used to be culled, like a lot of wild horses do, and a group got together, a heritage trust got formed, and they basically rescued all the horses every year that get culled and have rehomed them and had them tamed. So it's an absolutely incredible project. And stopped any of these horses going to slaughter. And so I decided, because I love horses and I've had horses in all my life, that this was something I wanted to be a part of. And it might not be they might not be well known in Australia, but in New Zealand, Kelly and Vicky Wilson and the Wilson sisters and the family are very well known for horse trainers and horse ladies in New Zealand, and they were a part of this, and I got to go on this trip with them. And this is in the sunrise of these wild horses. So you're chasing them around paddocks and running up and down hills trying to get photos of these crazy wild horses everywhere. It's absolutely incredible. Kind of similar vibe to the glacier in a way for me. I paid money to go on this trip and donating money and trying to help the project. So that's one of my passion projects. The other project I have, which I don't share a lot of pictures of, is actually teaching teenagers and young people photography. So long term, I'm hoping that I'm going to have a trust and a project that I can create that'll be for the next generation of photographers coming through, not just photography, but how to make money out of photography. So I'm pretty excited about that, but that's probably going to be more of a legacy project. And I need lots of help with that. So that's the sort of stuff I'd love to have people like you guys also come over and, be a part of too.
Literally just before I got on the show, I was writing an assessment report for a Duke of Edinburgh from some classes that I was doing on youth photography in New Zealand.
Awesome.
Just after I saw you, actually. So it's definitely definitely something I'm pretty passionate about myself.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm super excited because my 3 kids, who I've never ever asked them to do photography, or I've never given them, like, pushed them into it or anything. They all want cameras for Christmas because we're going on this road trip, and they've all decided that they want to make a film and take photos and record it. And so I said that the deal is, if I buy the cameras, they have to learn how to shoot on manual. So I'm pretty stoked about that. And I think, my kids are all really good artists. So it'll be another string to their bow. And I said, it's like doing an apprenticeship. If you don't necessarily use it as a business, at least it's a backup plan. Some skills they'll have will be able to use whatever they choose to do. So I'm going to practice on them before I put it out to the greater community, I guess. But really excited about that. So that's one of my passion projects. I'm not sure why I've got these pictures in here, but I'll just quickly flick through. These are a couple of cool ones. Oh, that's my only North Island shot that I have that I like. That's the Waipunga Falls. Sold a few prints of that.
I know that one. Where's that one?
That's Waipunga. It's between Taupo and maybe Napier, is it?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is just one of the workshops, running one of the workshops with Megan Maloney and Twizel. And that was my last picture. That's kind of me in my natural habitat. My best mate Stace took that picture of me in the Rotorua Redwoods. Pretty much spend most of my life with a ponytail and activewear, and that's me. And that's my passion and love. And
I was going to say you're looking pretty lovely when you got on there tonight. I was like,
I thought I'd better do my hair. Thought I'd better put something nice on for you.
Say a big hello to Stacey for me too. It was really lovely to meet her.
I will. I'm actually going on
that super cool experience, and I hope I get down to her neck of the woods in Fiordland sooner rather than later. I'm going to come back for Christmas, so I'll be thinking about that already.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'm actually going on a trip with her in a few weeks. So I think we're going to Catlin.
Oh, Catlin's, yeah. I spent most of my a lot of my wayward youth at Tiger University doing crazy surf trips down at the Catlins. It was pretty wild in those days. This is 27 years ago or something. Showing my age, and that was kind of this unknown area in those days, and nobody goes there, and what the heck's even down there, and
I don't think there's much down there still.
Yeah,
just like waterfalls and wildlife.
And
crazy photographers.
Yeah, big and crazy surfers that are trying to find these obscure sort of random ways where they've got to either be nice to the farmers or find a way to somehow get down to, because there's not that many roads out to the coast.
I know, it's crazy, right? So I know you can ask me any questions you want, but I was just thinking about to kind of finish up is the adventure for me has always been my passion. It's always been about the adventure, even since I was a kid. Everything's been about exploring, I don't know, just sharing it with people I love. I think it's just Mother Nature, it opens you up to understanding more about who you are and why you're here and all the rest of it. I've never fitted into the 9 to 5. It doesn't suit me. So I'm just like, that's not for me. How am I going to do this? And I've worked for myself for 25 years because it's just my nature. And I think we're developing our environment more and more now to be able to embrace more people who are like us. And I think it's exciting. And I think the future is so exciting for creatives. And, it's amazing what's capable and possible with technology. The biggest thing is to try and find a model that makes you obviously income so you can actually live your life, as well as, it's not about the money, but it's about the experience. And for me, the freedom of choice, which is hugely important to me, more than anything. So being able to be creative, as well as making my own choices, to me that's a pretty big part of why I do what I do. it's given me some amazing experiences with awesome people. I've met so many incredible photographers and people in the industry over these years, and I only feel like I'm just like not even at 50% capacity at the moment. Once my kids are older, I'll be really amping it up. I can't really see me living in any one place necessarily. Be just kind of out there doing it. And someone pointed out to me the other day that I'm now middle age, and I'm like, Jesus, I hadn't thought of that. So I'm like, righto, actually, I want to make the second half, pretty freaking spectacular. So
rock and roll.
Yeah. And I guess that's one thing COVID's done for a lot of people too, is it's making you really think about what do you really want. And that's something that is possibly quite exciting. Some people might be terrified by that, but actually once you can find a track to run on as to how you can go about it and do it and plan it, and it's like anything, we spend more time planning out our bloody wardrobe than we do our life and our business. Like it's a choice. We have options to choose where we spend our time and energy, and I've chosen to spend mine on what I do and figuring it out. And on the daily, sometimes I wake up and think, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I even doing this? What the hell, or whatever. And then I remind myself, oh, actually, this is a real business. And I think that's something that's still a little bit on the edge. People said to me when I started doing this, oh, you'll never make money from photography. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. And I was like, well, you just wait and see. I'll show you in my mind, because that's my response. But I guess, everybody's different, and we've all got to, find our place with it. And just, have fun. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it. That's also another one of my little mantras. I was just recalling earlier with you when the first week I got my camera, I went on this 1 week trip with my mate Talman Madsen, and we took a client to the Hoeka Glacier, and we did this, I think it was 6 days, 5 nights South Island trip, and we did the Church of the Good Shepherd, astrophotography, Milky Way rise. It snowed. We went to Mount Cook. We tramped into the Hoeka Glacier with crampons at -9 and did astrophotography for like 6 hours at night. It was absolutely amazing. Met Will Patino on the track, didn't even know who the guy was at that point. He was running a workshop, and then met some other, I think Lauren Ray was on the track. There was a whole bunch of random people that are obviously really good photographers. I didn't even know who they were at that time. We went to the Lindis Pass. We got some astrophotography with snow there. We went to Wanaka and did a doors off helicopter flight around Mount Aspiring in the sunrise, and we got a KP7 Aurora at Twizel. So I had all these so crazy, right? Like right face, right
my
time.
God.
I know. And so I'd gone from taking photos on my phone and on Instagram to then posting up all these crazy photos. And everyone was messaging me like, what the hell's going on? Are these your pictures? Where are you? And so it kind of propelled me. And you might know Jordan McAnally from Undersell Photography. He also met up with us on that trip. And, those boys taught me a lot at the start. And, we just were actually excited. And I propelled myself into the industry with all those shots, because I was just so in the zone, and people sort of knew me in tourism because I'd had a travel magazine before that. So I went from being a magazine editor who wrote stories to now being this photographer as well. And I guess I was, all the work I'd done for a long time in preparation, not realizing how it was all going to work out. And so then I ended up not running my magazine anymore, because I had to make a choice. Then it was quite a risky thing. Do I continue running my magazine, which I can't do photography and magazine together, it's just too much, or do I not pursue this photography passion? And I remember thinking, just what if I could make that work? And it was like I'm going to do this. And that's just what I've done. I don't know. I don't think about it too deeply. I don't have big business plans. I just go with my heart, and I ask the universe for guidance and ask them to show me the way. And, I'm pretty much into angel cards and crystals and all that kind of stuff. And for me, that works for me. And I just seem to, I guess it's because I have a connection with astrophotography and the Milky Way and the stars and all that as well. It kind of all goes together, I think. I don't know. I'm just living my dream at the moment, to be honest. And now really excited about, what's next. And I do quite a bit of guiding for cruise ships, cruise ship industry as well. And that's just starting to come back again. I've got my mentoring program that I teach people how to make photography into a business and, sell a few prints, just kind of winging it to see where it's going to go from here, I guess. So, yeah, that's
so
kind of...
What's the best way for people to engage with you and your work and now and in the future?
Yeah, thank you. Mostly I post most of my stuff on Instagram on Rachel Gillespie NZ, or my website, which I have two websites actually. One for travel is nztraveladventure.com, or my mentoring site is rachelgillespie.co.nz. So any of those will find you there. The other thing I was going to say is that over this COVID time, that I really thought deeply about what kind of business did I want to have once things came back. And so myself and three other photographers have actually joined forces to get a guiding concession for Department of Conservation. And we've now got access to 130 dock tracks in the South Island for guided tours. So that's also been, making making lemonade out of lemons.
Lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah, we were like, okay, we can't do this alone. So I worked with Rachel Roberts, Joseph Pooley, and Douglas Thorne. Douglas is based in Hoelen, Rachel's on the west coast of South Island, and Joseph's in Mackenzie. And, so we have a team. So it's not just me. And I work with Megan Maloney as well, and we have a few other people that we can source in if we need extra people. And so, out of all of this, and you, absolutely, I need to come to Tasmania. But, out of all of this, I think one of the awesome things about all of that is, yes, we all do our own thing and have our own business, but there are times when you can't do it alone. If you want to grow to be greater than just yourself, then finding a team of people, finding other good humans, and it sounds like you're already doing that over there with Luke and co. And then you can, all be good at your good bits. I think that's also really important in business, because there's things I'm not good at, and I don't attempt them in the business. I'll outsource that. And, people go, oh, I can't afford it. Well, actually, do you realize how much money you're costing yourself by trying to figure that out, when you could be making more money by outsourcing that to someone else and going and doing jobs? The other thing I was going to mention too is a lot of times we take on work that is not our best self or best skills. And that's something that I've started doing a lot more now in the last couple of years. If someone asked me to do a wedding, I refer them to someone else. If someone asked me to do a portrait, I refer them to someone else. I could wangle it. I could probably do it. It's not what I do. I'm not good at that. So why put myself to make myself mediocre in a whole bunch of genres when it's wiser to be good at one or two, So maybe that's my wee parting wisdom.
Yeah, there's a lot there, especially that last half hour, Rachel. It's just been a real delight to get a little bit more under the surface and a little bit more comprehensive and holistic. And
well, I hope that's been helpful. And it's just my story, really. But at the end of the day, I've lost my dad and my brother in the last few years as well, and that's made me realize a lot of things about living. Every time I go out shooting, I take them with me in my heart, and I think about, it sounds probably weird, but anyone who's lost a family member will understand what I mean by that. I am grateful that I'm still walking around and they're not. So it's quite black and white, where I just sort of go, well, actually, I'm out here doing this. I could be feeling like I'm cold, so I want to go home, but I haven't got the shot that I wanted or whatever. And just go, you know what, actually do it for them. And quite often I connect with nature more because I'm grateful for the ability to be fit and well and vibrant and out there doing, what I want to do. So I think I
can sum that up, Rach. I mean, from what I can see and feel, and is that it's because you're not just in your head, you're actually in your heart as well with what you're doing and how you're living. And I think that's what drew me to you, and why I've really enjoyed spending time with you and getting to know you even better tonight, because that's something I personally aspire to as well. And to me, that's the cornerstone of a healthy, well-rounded life is that you have a space for both those parts, heart, mind, and spirit as well. And whether you want it or not, they're part of being
present with the day, because tomorrow's a new day, and if you're present with today and you create something cool, and then that's going to change tomorrow. And it sounds so basic, but it's so crucial. And we forget about this because we become, we're an adult, we're supposed to do this or that. I'm very much like a child, actually. If it's fun, if it's not fun, I'm not doing it, and keep it present for the moment, in the present moment. Like at the end of the day, that changes tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And that's how you attract abundance, and how you attract different people into your space, I guess.
You've got, there's a few big quotes on there you got left me thinking of, especially the five people that you turned into.
Have you not heard that?
Who am I hanging out with? Like, maybe I should line them up and so just, geez, what's going on here? But
that's an oldie, that one, but it's been around a while.
Yeah, it's been a really
it kind of makes you stop and think about what you're doing with your time.
Yeah, well, speaking of time, we're a fair chunk over, but it's been my favourite part of the show, even the last part.
Thank you. I didn't even realise the time, but that's what happens when we start talking.
I was like, Rachel and I are both quite capable of being present in the moment.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honour, and I'm so grateful, and I think it's it's so cool to be able to share my story. And I'm still in new beginnings, really. I'm just growing. I mean, virtually the last 2 years doesn't even count for my business, so I feel like I've sort of started all over again from scratch, and got a wee bit of a base, but in a wee library of pictures there that I can fall back on, but it's new beginnings again.
Well, I mean, Rachel's underselling herself. She's a bit of a powerhouse, and I've got a lot to learn from someone like her, I'm keen to spend more time with you, Rach. And I do hope I do have a feeling that it's the beginning of something for us too, like in terms of a life connection of any kind, whether it crosses over into business, pleasure, or so on. To me, photography is all blended into one anyway, because I'd be doing it whether I was putting food on the table or not. I'd still be doing it.
It's amazing. And doing workshops has actually become some of my best days too, outside of my family. I just absolutely love it. And you finish a workshop and you end up almost being friends with everybody, and so that you end up with this big group of people who you all got the same common passion, and it's so exciting. And you'll know this when you're doing workshops too. And I didn't ever see myself being a workshop tutor, to be honest, but I've always been quite a good teacher, so I guess it just kind of evolved. And I've learnt so much from Megan Maloney about how to teach a workshop. She's incredible. And a few different people on my journey, and I think you just look after people, show them the way, hold their hands, so to speak, metaphorically, and That's what everybody's looking for. Everybody wants to be listened to, heard, loved for who they are, whatever you want to call it. And you can run a business on that vibe. I've kind of said it before, like, your vibe attracts your tribe. So I think that's important too, to just go, these are my people, these are the people that gel with me. Everyone else can find somebody else's workshop, because it doesn't matter.
We've had a bit of feedback on YouTube. We've got Aston Moss.
Rachel,
hi, Aston. Highly engaging and a great teacher. Looking forward to the show.
Oh,
we've had some
Aston's amazing. He's actually helping me with some business stuff at the moment. So yeah, thank you, Aston.
Andrew's like, I'm supposed to be working, but this is such a cool chat.
Oh.
Dave Skinner's like, thanks, Rachel, for opening up with us and sharing your photography and how you go about it. And Julie Oates is another amazing evening. Thanks. So we've had some really good feedback. And
thank you.
But yeah, I wind it up. I haven't had dinner yet, and it's 10 o'clock. Oh. So probably gonna, but that's just me, because I'm just in the moment.
I'm heading to Twizel tomorrow, so I'm hoping it's not going to be snowing. But
well, say hello to Andrew for me too.
Oh well,
when you go up
taking
there.
the kids on a roadie. It's my daughter's 15th birthday on Friday, so we're going for a special holiday in a roadie, and then we're going on a glacier trip with some clients on Saturday, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, if Richard's there too, say hello.
Yeah, we'll do.
That's so good. Well, you keep well, Rachel.
On, and just keep in touch, and I'm sure we can get you back over here and doing some cool stuff.
No untwisted needed. I have a feeling that I need to spend more time at home anyway, Rach. So any excuse is welcome, so to speak. I've put your Instagram and your main website details already in the show description, but I'll track down the other one and try and put that in as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks to the other guys too. I know they're not on, but just
and thanks for the other 8 people in the house for letting us have Rachel for tonight.
They're probably all asleep.
Yeah, it's pretty late over there.
12.
Oh yeah. Well, I was complaining about the time. It's midnight over there. So
I'm an astrophotographer. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So
we're a bit nocturnal.
Yeah. Well, you keep well, Rachel.
Thanks so much
for your time. It's been wonderful.